Okay. Whoops. Wait, how does this thing work again? Okay, so I would like to call to order the South Burlington City Council meeting of Monday, November 1st, 2021, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Matt, you want to start us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we'll continue with instructions on exiting the building in case of an emergency.
Great, thank you. So at the back of the room are two exit doors on either side. Folks can go out either one and then turn left or right to go to the back entrance by the back parking lot or out the front entrance.
No?
No?
It happens sometimes because there's something else on.
Okay, hold on. Travis is gonna work on it for a sec.
We got our IT guru on.
Well, yeah, a day after Halloween. Woo!
Echo. Mute. Mute.
That's exactly the ghosts of. There's ghosts already in the library. So
I had to listen to Monster Mash.
is that better now?
You did the mash. It's all we'll go with the Monster Mash.
Hmm.
It was a pretty good smash. Test, test, test.
Testing. Are we still echoing? Well, should we turn off our mics, or then they can't hear if they're.
Yeah, we can live with it. It's just a little spooky.
Okay. Well. Okay.
All right, I'll keep going and
So
maybe.
we know how to exit, right?
Yes, I did want to mention two other things. One, if you are participating on the phone and would like to make a comment, please feel free to either turn your camera on or indicate to me in the chat that you'd like to speak. Other than that, we are not monitoring the chat. And then I did want to let those in the audience and those on GoToMeeting and those who may participate in the future, who may be watching this at a later date, that this room is wired for assisted listening devices. Great, whatever you just did, Travis, we're getting lots of thumbs up.
That's the ghost. Okay.
So if you are interested in having the sound pumped directly into your hearing aids, please see Andrew or myself. Thank you very much.
Okay. Item 3, agenda review. Any additions, deletions, or changes in order of agenda items? Seeing none. Comments and questions from the public not related to the agenda. And I know John wants to speak. Does anyone else? And Roseanne. Okay.
So the question is there an echo here? You guys okay with this? Okay,
Ooh, sorry.
it's okay.
Turn that off. Sorry, pardon me.
Well, good evening to all of you, and thank you for giving me time. I'm John Bosange. I think I've met most of you, directly or indirectly. But soon you will be receiving a recommendation from the Planning Commission regarding land development regulations, or as I prefer to call them, land use regulations. Last week, we had 3 South Burlington High School students who came and spoke to the Planning Commission. They expressed their concerns, their fears about their future on the planet. And they talked about the impact of the present red code climate crisis on their future. I'm asking you to think about them and their generation as I am now. When you adopt a set of land use recommendations and regulations. Unlike myself, when I was 18, and maybe this was true with you too, I saw a bright future. I had dreams like you. They were normal young adult dreams about my career, marriage, my education, friendships, and my family. The environment was a big, big concern for me back then. Pollution and litter were big. They were big topics in 1968. Whoops, I just dated myself. But Richard Nixon created the Environmental Protection Agency. We saw laws passed to clean up rivers, put scrubbers on smokestacks, catalytic converters on cars, and companies were required to reclaim the land that was destroyed by pollution runoff. It wasn't even close to perfect, but we had hope. We saw some light at the end of that tunnel, and most of all, we saw a future on the planet. You know those 3 students that spoke? I'm not sure they do. I'm not sure. They know what happens when we go to 1.5 degrees above an increase. They know by the year 2030, if we don't cut the greenhouse emissions in half, they know what happens if we continue to use fossil fuels to heat our homes and drive our cars. They are smart and they are educated. They know about the Rio Summit, Kyoto, the Paris Accords, and they are watching the world leaders today in Glasgow. And we've heard the leaders all say, this is our last best chance or we're done. And they know if nothing is done, they will have no long-term future on the planet. None. Just think about that, being 18 years old, as we were, and thinking about that you may not have a future on the planet. Knowing that you may not be there in 2020 or 2030. It's that close. And as someone said to me the other day, we're on second base and we don't even know it. So they know what protecting land, water, and air is all about and what it means to their future in mitigating the climate crisis. But they will find some hope. They will find hope if they see things happening right here in their own backyard. And we owe them that, big time. They're placing a climate crisis clock in the lobby of the high school, showing how many years they have left before it's too late to reverse the damage. The clock strikes 0 before they reach 30 years old. Well, we'll probably be gone when the catastrophic and disastrous events start, but they won't be, and they know it. And they don't see any light at the end of their tunnel. They're not, I believe, they're not that hopeful at all. It's the giant elephant in the room for the next generation. They're talking about it whispering quietly. I can hear them. They're not open about it yet because they are absolutely frightened and don't want to come across as depressed and dark and negative during a time in their life, as it was for us, when we were bright, positive, and hopeful. So my request of you, and really for all of us at this stage, is to be thinking about those students and all the others who are under 30 years old. We all need to be thinking about the year 2030 and 2040, not 2022 and 2023. We need to be thinking long term, the long game, their future, and not about the short game for us. That game's been pretty easy. Immediate profit, immediate housing built anywhere allowed, immediate commercial sites and jobs everywhere. We've been good at that, and I certainly have benefited from that. But the long game, that's more difficult because it calls on us to make sacrifices to our lifestyle and in our community. And for those students at South Burlington High School and the generation, I can tell you they are waiting for us to make those long-term plans and sacrifices and plan ahead for them. They do understand. They do understand the need for appropriate and responsible development. They're wise enough to see that. But they still see how important it is to set the stage now with strong environmental protections for their land, their air, their water, right here in South Burlington. They need to feel some hope, and you can give it to them by including some of the recommendations sent to the Planning Commission at their hearing last week, by having land use regulations on key parcels of land, habitat blocks, grasslands, key primary agricultural soils, forests, and woodlots, all to help mitigate the current climate crisis. Let's leave these students and their generation with some light at the end of their tunnel. In the letters and speeches they gave last week, it was very clear. Every one of them ended with, please save the planet for us. So let's make the LDRs work for them, not just for us. Thank you very much, and thanks for your work.
Roseanne?
Oh, that was a hard act to follow. I'm Roseanne Greco. I guess I am now your city tree hugger. I'm here to talk to you about ash trees again. I know this is not a dialogue, this was not warned, so I'm just going to present something, but the bottom line is I hope you will still discuss this. I know you've taken a vote, I'm still asking for you to reconsider it. So the ash trees, I've done a lot of research, contacted a number of arborists, learned a lot about what other cities are doing and municipalities. And basically what I'm asking you, well, there's three things. The big thing is talk again, put a moratorium on any more cut downs until you get more outside information. That's the big ask. The middle ask is have a stay of execution for the trees that are on my street. There are 31 ash trees on my street. The vast majority in the first part of the block are all ash trees. And then the little mini ask is just allow me to save the one tree in front of my house. It may be the last remaining ash tree in the city if the city plans go forward, because all or most of the ash trees in our forest lands will die because we're not going to treat them. The city has decided to cut down all the other ash trees that are on the street. Some of us have ash trees in our backyard. I'm going to treat the one ash tree in my backyard. But most of the ash trees will be gone except for the ones we treat. So what the arborist told me today that I spoke with is that he's got many years experience with this. Treating them is 100% effective. You have to do it forever. I thought maybe once the ash tree, emerald ash borer went extinct, you could stop it, but he says no, he thinks they have to be treated forever. So here's the price he's going to give me for treat my one little ash tree and any ash trees on my street. So they're treated every 2 years. I can give you the chemical. It does not harm the bees, the birds. It does kill some other little critters. But they have to be treated every 2 years. And a tree with a diameter of about 14 inches costs $62 a year. Treated every 2 years. In future years, it may go to every 3 years. So for me, I can afford $62 a year. I actually think a lot of my neighbors would like to do that too. I just haven't had the time to organize everybody and, pool our resources and commit to paying $62 a year to save the 31 ash trees on our street. But we can't do anything if you cut them down. So I'm just asking for a stay of execution for the ash trees on Four Sisters Road. That would be wonderful. If you won't agree to that, will you let me save my ash tree? I will assume all liability. I'll sign any legal contract you have that if I don't treat it and the tree gets sick, it takes about 18 months to 2 years to 5 years before trees once they're infected by the borer, get to the point where they're dangerous, where things start falling off and trees start falling over. But it's not instantaneously. But let's say I'm derelict or, whatever, I move out of town, which won't happen. I'll put money for cutting down, grinding the stump, planting a new tree. I'll put the money up front if that's what will take to get you to let me save. I've named her Ashley, the tree in front of my house. Thank you for hopefully talking about this in the future.
Thank you, Roseanne. Are there any other comments or questions from the public? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to announcements and the city manager's report. So, Tim, do you want to start?
Just a quick note that the Pension Advisory Committee met last week on Tuesday with Pat Blizzard from SEI. And of course, the market's doing well, so nothing negative to report. So everything looks good. Also, Eric Schatt was there, our actuary, giving some initial reports about the percent coverage of the fund. I think it's like the market basis was like 96% funded. And you know, there are all these different categories of fundedness, right? So, but it's very healthy at this point. We didn't need to make any changes so far, so let's hope that it stays that way.
Yeah, it will for a while, I'm sure.
For a while,
and it
yeah.
will change.
Yeah, it will change.
Okay, thank you. Matt? Nothing? Okay. Megan?
Just want to thank everybody again for the retreat on Saturday. I thought it was a useful process, and it opens our eyes, I think, more to all the things that we have on our plates, and kind of the serving size that you all need to take on. I found that, educational. So just thank you again for organizing that, and we've got a lot on our future plates.
Yeah, we have a banquet ahead of us.
Yes.
Anything, Tom?
Just one thing. One of the sextons reached out, Peter Taylor, and he's asking about what it seems to be, and I think there was an email thread on this, and maybe the city manager can speak to this in her announcements either tonight or at a future meeting, but I'm hearing that there is some homeless encampments on the cemetery down on the Shelburne Road, and I did speak briefly with Chief Burke about it, but after walking down into Sears Lane, I just hope we as a city are fully aware of how it's getting colder, and we do have residents that are experiencing homelessness, and so it'd be great to know, and I think the community would want to know what we're doing for outreach and other things to serve that needed group.
Thank you. I don't have anything to announce other than I would just, echo Megan's comments that I thought the retreat was really helpful, and I like the idea of having those on an annual basis so we really can have time to have the conversations with all of the leadership team and the entire council. So it's great. So thank you.
Does anybody want to mention the reapportionment meeting that we had last Thursday at all, or?
Oh.
That the BCA met, and we were presented with some information from the legislature apportionment board because the population has increased in the city to the point where we could take on another rep district. And so the question is how to configure that district, and they just wanted some initial feedback on whether we thought that we should go with 5 districts in the city or partner with Williston or Essex. They don't want to, we don't want to, so I think we said that we would like to move forward with 5, and then the question is later on, if that goes through, how we draw the lines.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and I forgot to mention, and we were all, I think almost all of us were present anyway, we had a steering committee. We've met so often, I get confused about, was this before the last meeting? Which last meeting? But we did have what I thought was a constructive conversation with the school board. And one of the issues and information that they shared with us was the data that they have received from their demographer that clearly is indicating continued growth in the school population, I think across the board. But they were having,
For high school.
except for the high school, and they have some concerns about some of the conclusions as well. But and they will be looking forward to a recommendation by the the superintendent on what to do, how to address the real overcrowding in 2 of the elementary schools. So it was just good to have that conversation, keep us up to date, and certainly I think it's helpful for us to use that information to help them understand, regardless of what a demographer says, if there are, 1,900 houses being built in the next year or 2 or permitted, that will have an impact on schools. So we all need to kind of pull together around that and understand those implications for all of our decision making about building schools, addressing the lack of space in the schools, as well as what kind of development should we be promoting to not exacerbate a current situation until it's resolved. So I thought it was a really good conversation.
And they went out 10 years, I'll just add, and redistricting wasn't a solution to them because all 3 would be over-enrolled within a few years,
Right.
according to the demographics.
So there's no quick, easy solution. So they're looking for some leadership, I think, from the superintendent about some options. Matt, did you want?
Just wanted to add to your point, Helen, if I could. I was on the road, so I participated by phone. I couldn't be there in person. But what I thought was fascinating was that how the discussion that we had about building a new facility 2 years ago was really based on the demographer's report saying that we're going to have a larger population into our middle school and high school, and how this new report indicated that really the growth, as Megan said, is in the elementary schools, and it's more of an art than a science. But it informs some very big decisions that we as a community will have to make over the next decade.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Jesse?
Great. Well, this is our 3rd meeting together in 6 days, so really appreciate your your commitment, and also want to sincerely thank you for your time and energy and expertise on Saturday, as well as that of the leadership team and the community that participated. I was just so impressed by how engaged everyone was, and I'm really hopeful for our next conversations. So just for council and community awareness, the next round of those recommendations will be coming back to the council for consideration on November 15th. We do a couple of other updates, and Councilor Chin and I will talk about what we are seeing at our cemetery. We do anticipate the Climate Action Plan Task Force meeting this month, having their inaugural meeting this month and kicking off that work. We do have some upcoming hydrant replacement and water service disruptions happening this week, specifically on Twin Brook Court, Spear Street, Sherry Road, Airport Drive, and Nolan Farm Road. We have flyered all of the impacted property owners, but just in case you all here in the community, I want you to be aware of that. We also have received an update on the Kimball Culvert project. It is now scheduled to reopen the week after Thanksgiving, so that is a little later than we intended, but that is where we currently are. Also want to share that the Allen Road shared use path is complete. We are working on some opportunities for stenciling that around Pennyford Parks, and hopefully having some photography opportunities with the Bike Ped Committee, who was so instrumental in getting that done. But our staff shared that when they did the final walkthrough with the contractors to make sure everything was kind of appropriately buttoned up, there were already people using the path, so they were really excited to see that. On the Fun Parks and Rec front, thanks to the 800 community members who participated in the Glow Walk on Friday, it was a great success, and the 75 folks who carved pumpkins at the Senior Center. And just because I've heard that this is a very big deal, winter basketball, registration closes for that on November 4th. So get your registrations in for that if you're interested. Last week, the library also celebrated their 1,000th new library card membership since the opening of 180 Market Street. So just
Oh,
a
wow.
couple of months, which is a huge success.
What's the total membership, do you know?
I don't know that
Card
off the top
holding,
of my head.
But they had 1,000 new ones.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so if you build it, they will come.
Just a reminder about upcoming meetings. We will meet next Monday night for a special meeting to consider an IZ permit and to potentially receive a recommendation from the Planning Commission. Then we have our regular meeting on the 15th. And then you have a little bit of a break until December 6th when you'll receive the FY23 budget. Two other late breaking items. So I did want to give you a few sentences. You may have seen the press release on the University Mall today. So at 12:55, we received, or dispatch received an E911 call about shots fired at the mall. What we know right now is that there were two males or parties of males who were known to one another in an altercation. We have identification for some of them. And that investigation is still very much ongoing. So if folks have information about that incident this afternoon around 1 o'clock at the University Mall, they should reach out to Detective Grealis, and that contact information is on our website. And then in terms of the camping we're seeing at the Shelburne Road Cemetery, we are aware of that. Our priority right now through our community outreach team and the police department is really to ensure those folks have the services they need and hopefully get into permanent homes for themselves as soon as possible. And we are prioritizing that, and then we'll, once those folks are served well, we will go back to maintaining the cemetery. So we are keeping an eye on it. Chief Burke is certainly well aware and has engaged the Howard Center fully. So, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to the consent agenda, which frankly is the bulk of our business tonight. We have 5 items. Sign disbursements, consider and sign disbursements, approve a grant application to the Vermont Urban and Community Forestry Program, approve an agreement with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in Audubon, Vermont to conduct habitat management work at Wheeler Nature Park, execute a stormwater agreement with Windridge Condominium Association, and accept related documents for the stormwater easement and permit under the city's MS4 permit. And lastly, execute another stormwater agreement with Hayes Avenue Homeowners Association and accept the related documents for the stormwater easement and permit under the city's MS4 permit. So I would entertain a motion to approve.
One question first.
Yes, you may.
I want to talk about C, if that's okay. Could we remove C and then vote, and then we'll have C and probably vote on that right after that?
Sure.
Okay.
So I'll move to approve, except for C.
I
So-
second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving A, B, D, and E signify by saying aye. Aye. And no opposed, so that has passed. And let's go back to C. This is the Fish and Wildlife and Audubon habitat management work. So
Right,
you had
so-
questions?
Yeah, this is a great idea, and I'm glad it's being pursued. So I don't have any negative feedback for it, other than the aptronym of the head of the Audubon, Vermont's last name is Fowl, which I thought that was great. And I had introduced that aptronym name to some people, as like define that for them. But well, the guy Volz was the head of the Public Utility Commission for a while, right?
Yeah, both.
And Buck was head of Fish and Wildlife, right?
Yeah.
And Wood was head of Natural Resources for a while, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, getting back to
Well,
it.
we like that in Vermont.
I
It
know.
means you have a
But
real
you can't have the
commitment.
job unless your last name. So I just wanted to ask the city attorney, the assistant city,
Manager.
Mr. Bolduc, about any possibility of this plan running contrary to any aspect of the proposed conservation easement on that property. I'm a little bit worried because they're two separate things, and I want to have the other entity review it and give their okay, and that's all I'm asking.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, one we thought of as well. Ashley reached out to Bob Heiser, who's our contact at VLT, and had that discussion, and they have no objection to this. And certainly as we move towards closing, this will be part of the overall management plan on the
So
property.
it would be mentioned in the management plan, do you think? or-
Yeah, it may end up being mentioned in the management plan, but
We have to get the money first.
Yeah,
yeah. But they are fully aware of the project and support it.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I was really interested in the work that would be needed to remove the invasives. And I know we have a lot of invasives in the city and just how important that is for the bird habitat. I was also intrigued by the fact that they described the type of vegetation topography that is best for the birds. And that brings back to my mind a suggestion that I made several years ago about requiring that delineations between people's yards be left with some number of feet of uncut vegetation, that would provide some sort of hedgerow for whatever growth it would be that would be non-invasive. But anyway, so we can vote on this now. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, no, I was impressed with the plan as well, and pleased that we were going through, and hopefully this will be the start of the city really thinking about investing the kinds of money it takes to maintain our parks in good shape.
Yeah.
Did you have a
I'll just
comment?
add that the NRCC reviewed it too, so it has been on, people's kind of work plans over the past year. So,
I mean, I noticed that they said that you shouldn't brush hog before October 1st. And I just want to reiterate the complaint that I've raised with the city about the stormwater division mowing the edges of some storm ponds, especially in Cider Mill, twice a year in the early spring and before October 1st, sometimes in late September. And that we should only mow once a year, and it should be after October 1st. If we could possibly do that, that would be great. Because I feel like there's a nice band of like natural milkweed and Queen Anne's lace and a bunch of other plants that grow up in a pretty wide swath around the edges of those ponds. And they get mowed down twice a year, a little bit too soon. So
Well, we can certainly have that conversation, or you can share it with them, because I would agree.
And I'll just add, Ashley Parker, our projects manager who shepherded this, is on the phone and listening to this conversation as well, and is prioritizing those maintenance plans. So thank you to Ashley for moving this forward.
Yeah, this was very, very nice. So are we ready to approve this agreement?
Yes.
Ashley, did you want to say anything, or you just want to see us? or we see you as we vote?
Just wanted to let you know I am here, and I appreciate all the feedback you guys have given, and I am on the same page. So yes, this has been very interesting to listen to.
Between the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Audubon, Vermont to conduct habitat management work at Wheeler Nature Park.
second?
Okay, are we ready for the vote? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So that passes. Great. Okay, now going on to item 7. This is consider approving a resolution amending the Public Art Selection Committee purpose. And Alana Blanchett, our Community Development Director, and Penny Thompson, who's the chair of the Public Art Selection Committee. I had forgotten that, and I wondered, why are you here? Just to give your husband support, maybe? I don't know. Did he say he was lonely? Okay.
Is the light on your mic?
I don't know. Oh, I guess now it is. Thanks, Jesse.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, Alana's going to help me if I need it. So thank you. I guess you've all had a chance to read the proposed resolution. So I just have a couple of points. I wanted to also thank Therese Stratman is here. She's one of our committee members. She's the previous chair, but we switched in July. And the other members of our committee are Jean-Sébastien Chalot, if I pronounced that correctly.
Yeah.
And Michelle Bailey and Amanda Holland. So did I forget anybody? No, okay. And we're a small committee, and we are really excited about what we're doing on behalf of the city. I got involved with them. I volunteered to be on the committee, and you actually appointed me after participating as a community member in the selection of the geese sculptures. And it was like so exciting. I said, "Oh my gosh, look at this that goes on." So luckily, I was appointed, and for the last couple of years, the committee's been in place since 2015, but got active in 2016, from what I gather. I joined after that. What we've done so far is supervise the two big public art projects of the geese, and most recently the clock, Seasons Out of Time, that got placed in the library. And they've both been really exciting projects to work on. And but as we were working on those projects, and our remit is to do projects in city center, that we're the committee that helps select and recommend to you which artist, and then follow through on getting those artworks placed. And in those intervening years, some of what was also happening was independent organic projects coming up about public art. Katie O'Brien was, yes, who's that? She initiated
It's a close-knit
project.
community.
Pardon me?
It's a close-knit community.
Is a small community. But she started the idea of painting our electric utility boxes. And obviously it was really popular across the community. We were seeing all the positive reaction to that. One of our members, actually it was Teresa, I believe, attended one of the conferences in the New England Foundation for the Arts and saw what communities can do with public art on a broader scale. So we've kind of been talking about it amongst ourselves for a while, but we were busy with the clock and other things, and so we finally this year said, well, we're going to ask if we might broaden our scope a bit to help advise the city on broader matters about policy about art, and also change our name from Public Art Selection Committee to Public Art Committee, more broad-based. And we see the opportunity we have many arts organizations in South Burlington already. I mean, we have both private organizations like Davis Studio, we have Spotlight, we have Lyric Theater. So there are a lot of arts organizations already here, and we want to help foster the, awareness of the arts and the artists we have in the community. We need to do an inventory and have other things we'd like to be doing. But that's really that's in the gist of what's in the proposal or our resolution to amend our committee charge. And I don't know if there's, I forgot one big thing, sorry. When we built this building, of course, we ended up having a new gallery, an art gallery. And our committee is also responsible for managing the art gallery. We believe we found a curator we'd hope to appoint. And we have hung, just if you notice, you might have noticed this evening as you came in, there's a new show that got hung today with Treese and John Kalaki's help and others. And so that's been an exciting piece for us, but it does already broaden our scope, anyway, just by virtue of what we're working on there. And we started with the South Burlington artists. This show has 3 South Burlington artists. We're committed to help, when appropriate, try to help promote for other artists in South Burlington, and also student art. So we have lots of great ideas for what we can be doing for the city, and that's why we're asking for the amendment. I guess I'll let you ask questions. I'm not sure, did I leave anything out, guys? Okay.
Thank you. That was very complete. Are there any questions? No? I just have a comment. I'm glad that you want to expand your work and include some of those other opportunities, because I think art is sort of foundational to a community and to humanity, and it's really nice to have an active committee and certainly volunteers from our community who care so much and are interested in putting in that time. So thank you for what you've already done, and I appreciate that. And I think, in my mind, I think what you're asking makes perfect sense.
Great, thank you. Okay.
And the second show is up.
The second show is up. The reception is on Thursday, 5:30. Because of the times we are in, there will be no refreshments. So don't count on that, sorry. But we hope some of the artists will be here. And actually, it was really fun today. People, as they were walking through while we were hanging it, I think almost every single person stopped to just sort of comment and went, wow, great, you know. And it was interesting. One of the people probably didn't like the last show as much. So that was also funny. It's like, oh, I like this more traditional art. But I was like, fine. So you see, we're expanding horizons every day.
New age photography.
So, anyway, well, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Penny.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution as presented in our packet, amending the Public Art Committee charge.
So moved?
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion or comment? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you so much. Good job. All right, item 8, approve a tourism and economic recovery marketing grant application. And Alana Blanchard, our community development director, will be leading that
Yes.
conversation.
Thank you. Briefly, the state of Vermont has put out a call for applications for a grant for marketing and tourism, essentially to get people traveling to destinations in Vermont and spending money at Vermont businesses. So it is for any type of marketing that gets people to move around and sleep in hotels, essentially. So we pulled together a few folks, including from the hospitality industry and from the arts industry in our general area and in South Burlington, and had a conversation about whether or not there might be a good project that is a good candidate for this program. One thing that is perhaps unique to Vermont is we don't really have many high-profile winter events in Vermont, especially since First Night is no longer around. There aren't that many things that draw people out in the cold that aren't related to sports activities. And so, and Market Street is a great resource. It's established for events, and we don't have any annual events that have a sort of more regional impact yet in city center. So Holly and I had a good conversation with folks about the possibility and have put together sort of a short summary of what we're looking for in terms of a grant application. It is due November 3rd, and it would, Holly reached out to talk to an event planner, and also given her experience and some of the people that we're working with, their experience, we feel that the grant maximum of $30,000 is not enough to put off that type of an event, but we feel that it's important to get something like that started and to also get it started and on a good foot. And so we would be looking for an ARPA or other type of funding, at least a match, if not more than a match. So really wanted to call attention to that. And so in general, I think we're looking for something warm and fuzzy and twinkly and bright, and as Holly described it, classy. So we're all about fun. We sort of wanted to elevate that a bit in sort of winter night type festival. So that's where we are.
Great, Matt?
Thank you. Sorry, I may have missed it it's really
Yeah.
hard, these mass things. Where, we would close down Market Street to hold it there? Is that what you were saying?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, I wanted to
Yeah.
confirm that.
So, and we're looking at what we've discussed. I think for the grant application, we wouldn't be specific to give ourselves flexibility, but we have been discussing a Friday and Saturday night. And most likely it would, I think personally, but I think that's really a leadership discussion, is it would probably need to be before Thanksgiving due to the overall, the importance of Christmas shopping or holiday shopping in this area. So we would probably look at a date prior to Thanksgiving. We think there's a lot of synergy with other events that happen just before Thanksgiving, like the craft event. And in talking with someone who's very involved in their planning, and she said, I haven't talked to my board yet. They may not agree with me, but there's a lot of opportunity in having multiple events, especially a daytime event and a nighttime event that appeal to the same group of people. You can start to draw more and more people from far away for something like that. So, especially when it's all within walking distance.
Okay, Tom?
Three things. One, love this idea. It's great. Glad you're doing it. Two, I was talking to a South Burlington Rotarian, a volunteer extraordinaire, one that just when he puts his shoulder behind things, things happen. He loved this idea too. And
awesome.
I would just, and the final comment is really to broaden it. I like that you're thinking before Christmas to not mess with the holidays, but I also think January and February in Vermont are just cold, dark months, and I see this as a way to just bring it to life. So besides the grant, if you want to look at the Rotary as a partner to get some volunteers, as well as they have some resources. They helped with the city, the things that we're doing in the park. That was started as a Rotary event. So I hope you involve that. And then the final piece of the third one is I went to South Burlington. I went to Rick Marcotte. And when I went there back in the 80s, they used to have an outdoor ice rink back right over there. And I just fondly remember it. I think Mr. Bolduc also had that too. I would love to bring that back. I'd love to have that be part of this if we can partner with the school. But an outdoor Market Street thing where there's night lighting. So that was a big problem back then. It'd be dark. We have the facilities here at City Hall for people to warm up and get a hot cup of cider. So I would love to look at possibly outdoor ice rink too, if that's in the horizon at all.
That sounds great.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
Because the lights, I was curious if the Public Art Committee would be at all useful there. It can be an art. Or were you thinking, like red and green, just lights in the trees, or were you actually thinking of something with lights?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think I'm not sure. I think we know we want lots of lights, but that's all we know right now. I do think that the Public Art Committee would be a very important partner. We were definitely had conversations with Davis Studio and also the Vermont Creative Zone Chittenden County Coordinator, and they've already provided a commitment letter to participate. So I think that as part of marketing Vermont products and places, art is a very important component of that. So yes.
And would it stay up through the cold, dark months of February and March, or is that something that would come down?
I think that's to be determined.
To be determined.
So I do know that we own the snowflakes so those will go up again this year. I'm not sure what type of structure the lights will be on or how they'll be designed. So, but that's a good desire to keep track of.
Thanks.
Great. Okay, well, I would entertain a motion to approve this grant application for a tourism and economic recovery marketing event.
So moved.
Second, and just one comment for Alana. I was at a light kind of fest, and I think I told Kevin Dorn, so this was some time ago, but disco balls, if you shine lights on, it's kind of amazing under trees. So I just wanted to put that in your notes.
Thank you.
We have an old one. Okay, so we ready for the vote?
Yeah.
All in favor of approving this application signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So it passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What time is it? 8?
We're
A few minutes ahead of time, but we have 2 applications.
We do have 2, and one of our candidates is here, and I know the other candidate was likely to be here right at 7:30, so I think you could start talking to Mr. Biama.
Okay.
And then
Great.
the other
Thank you.
candidate. And I will, I guess, just do a teeny bit of table setting, which is this DRB vacancy. We are hoping that you will consider and vote on tonight. We do have some big permits coming to the DRB meeting in the middle of November that we would love to have this person on board for.
Okay, and the vacancy is 1 year?
Well, it's Alyssa. What's Alyssa's term?
I'm just
I
curious
can find out.
Yep, thank you.
how long.
So is one stepping down? Is it Alyssa?
One is moving
Alyssa.
out of the
It's
city.
moving out of the
Yeah.
city.
Lack of affordable housing.
We should fix that.
Well, let's see. So this is for a term ending in 2023.
Okay. Good. Ready? So, well, welcome, Michael. Thank you for expressing interest. And why don't you start by telling us why you would like to do this and, you know, what skill set you bring to the table that is important?
Thank you. Thank you for considering my application. I've worked in the commercial real estate business since I graduated from the University of Vermont in 2010. At that time, I actually interviewed at Redstone, believe it or not, in which they told me I did not have the experience for a job. So that they told me to go cut my teeth elsewhere, which is what I did. I moved to South Florida, where I got a job in commercial real estate. I was fortunate enough to do well enough to come back to the state that I loved, which is Vermont. So I've been here for about 4 years, been in and around DRB meetings, drawings, planning, reading land development regulations and doing my best to understand them. So I'm hopeful that I can offer the city my time and the skills that I've learned over the years to consistently and evenly apply the land development regulations to projects that come in front of the DRB.
Okay. One of the questions that we do ask DRB candidates is trying to explore a little bit about events or work that comes before, proposals, I guess, that comes before the DRB where you might have a conflict of interest given your connection or employment with Rearch Properties. And I am curious how many you think that might be. And I mean, obviously, I would hope you would recuse yourself if it was for your own company, but how do you think that is? Is that an issue, do you think?
A great question and one I was prepared to answer. We have one project that is, we just submitted sketch plan on. It's going for preliminary plat review next. So I would obviously recuse myself from that project. There are potential other projects at Technology Park, which I would recuse myself from. There are 2 or 3 remaining plats of land that could be slated for development sometime in the future. So if that's a potential conflict of interest, I completely understand, but I would obviously recuse myself from any decisions in those cases.
Okay. Are there other questions people have?
Tom's curious.
Oh, Tom?
Are you the same Michael Biama that suffered through some of my classes back about 10 years ago? I
am.
recognized the name, and I was like, but I thought he moved out of state, so it's good to see you.
I did
It's been
for a
long.
period of time. That's correct. Yeah, we had those gateway computers, the first touch screens with the pens. Yeah, remember that well.
Welcome back to Vermont. I guess my question is sort of tied to the former DRB chairs. Did that happen a lot with those conflicts, and how much of a problem is that usually?
More on his term than mine, I think.
Yeah, having knowledge of civil engineers, architects and engineers, as you say in your resume, that's really a plus. And it's also something you have to be aware of, because if you have a negative or a positive relationship with any one of those professionals that are involved in building, that can affect your judgment. So as long as you're clear and upfront, I don't see it as a problem, and I see it as an advantage to understand what it takes to design a building or development. So,
And I will say most of my experience locally has been in the brokerage community. Prior to joining Rearch in February, I was just a commercial real estate broker. My previous responsibilities included leasing the Pomerleau family's properties, all their shopping centers. So I was responsible for providing leasing services for them, as well as third-party services to the outside community.
so was it fair to say your book of business or your portfolio is more related to buildings that are already in existence rather than ones that may soon be in existence?
That is what the majority of my experience is, correct. Yeah, it is a new responsibility for me to be sourcing development deals, which is kind of the responsibility I'm now undertaking at REARC.
Got it.
Okay. Yes, Tim?
Yeah, can you tell us about REARCH and tell us, I mean, off the top of your head, what the portfolio consists of in South Burlington, both you know, current properties and possible future developments?
Yep. So REARC is comprised of two companies, the construction company and then REARC Properties. REARC Properties is owned solely by John Illick, Sr. And we represent the properties at Technology Park on behalf of Technology Park Partners, which is comprised of a partnership of individuals, including John Illick. So my responsibilities include overseeing the properties at the park that are still owned by Technology Park Partners. So that's property management and leasing there. And there are, besides the lots that we're currently trying to permit for a large project, there's additional 3 or 4 lots that we would ideally in the future like to develop or sell to the right candidates. But we've been very selective in terms of the types of uses and the types of facilities that have gone out there. So I don't expect that to happen, you know, super quickly.
So you're just focused on Technology Park? That's the only land that's currently owned or managed in some way by REARCH?
No, there are some. We also have some property management contracts across other parts of the state for other clients.
But just in South Burlington is what I'm asking?
Yeah, we have a property management agreement with other owners to take care of other properties.
Can you tell us who they are? Is that okay?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
REARC Properties manages Community Health Centers of Burlington's properties, so they have 8 facilities kind of in the area, and we do the property management services for all those facilities. We also take care of a couple other properties in St. Albans, one in Claremont, New Hampshire. What else am I missing? I think
That's good. Great. Can I keep asking questions? Yeah. So you've already been in front of the DRB before?
not me personally. We had a sketch plan presentation a couple weeks ago. I sat in the back.
That was your first DRB meeting?
That was my first DRB meeting here. I've sat through a couple in Burlington before when I was interested in a project that was being permitted down there, Cambrian Rise, which I'm sure you may be familiar with.
So as you drive around South Burlington today and you see projects that have been completed in the last 10 years, let's say, do you ever have any particular opinion about the project or how it was implemented or the architecture or the design or something that makes you say, oh, that's really nice, or boy, that one didn't work out so well?
Or any ill feelings to any former DRB chairs?
No, I'm just curious, because we're you're in this is a position where there's not a lot of wiggle room, right, for changing. The LDRs kind of like lay out what the template is for how things can go, but there's some gray area and nuance in there, and sometimes that's the opportunity to make changes that benefit the city, sometimes at the expense of somebody else. So I'm just asking you, do you have any aesthetic opinions about things that you've seen where you think something should have been done or something was overdone or?
Obviously, sometimes you wish things had gone differently. Development is a complicated process, and aesthetics and design are only one component of it. And especially nowadays, there's a lot more things to consider when it comes to sustainability and efficiency of buildings, especially how they're designed. So, of course, you always see opportunities where maybe the land development regulations don't quite get there, but at the same time, I think I do believe that you try to keep your personal opinion out of it as much as you can and apply the regulations consistently and evenly across all the projects, and keep your personal opinions out of it, and that's how I would approach it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Megan?
Well, just to go back to what Tim Barrett said, is that there are some sections that allow the DRB to have some parameters that are fairly wide and open to opinion, and and to best judgment. And some of those things have to do with aesthetics. They have to do with design of the parcel. They have to do with waivers to some things, or exemptions from some regulations. And so you named some of those things. You talked about sustainability, you talked about aesthetics, you talked about various things. And where do you come down on that? As you know, and I think talking about past experiences is possible. You don't have to speak just in vague terms. You can also talk about your experience in Florida if you'd prefer to go out of state.
No, not particularly. Florida, they're a little bit different. They, you can permit a lot of different things down there, especially once you kind of go outside the more regulated areas. There's less control, I would say, and the ability to permit something quickly and build it quickly is much more apparent, I would say. In terms of projects that in terms of the components that you mentioned, obviously aesthetics is something that everyone notices. People that don't know anything about the development business or architecture, engineering can see a building and know that was well designed, or they have an opinion on its design. And obviously that's one component of it, but I think that today it's less of a component than the sustainability and the efficiency, which is what really people are really looking for. They want a building that has a tight envelope, that doesn't waste a lot of heat and cooling, and make sure that it's efficient and that the emissions from that building are, what we're striving for is net zero, right? And so that's, I think, a big component of where this city is headed and where other cities in the immediate area are headed, and I agree with that entirely.
So in terms of siding to have solar-ready roofs, you would think about the placement, you would think about things like where it would be located if it were near a sensitive natural resource. Those kinds of things is where the DRB has some room to maneuver.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there other questions? All right, just so, if there are not, just so you understand the process, we have another candidate that will interview, and then we, if the council is interested, and it sounds like we probably should be, we will go into executive session to consider the applications and make a determination tonight. Typically, we don't do it the same night and have anyone hang around to find out. And you don't have to hang around because you'll get a letter or a call. But we would, I suspect we will make the decision tonight.
Okay.
And then we would want whoever that candidate is to be ready. You have a meeting tomorrow night, right? DRB's meeting tomorrow, right?
It's next Tuesday.
Oh, next Tuesday?
Yeah.
Is it
It's
tomorrow?
tomorrow. Yeah.
Sue knows.
Yeah,
We're
it's
doubled up tomorrow then. Planning Commission and DRB.
Well, I'm available tomorrow.
Okay.
Commission's
And
not
so, and you
3:01.
also understand one last
DRB wins
question.
the,
Yep.
wins
When
the
they
room.
meet, maybe we don't, but, and the time commitment
Yep.
involved with,
It's 5 to 10 every other Tuesday, right? About.
yeah, it's every other Tuesday. I don't know what time they start. Is it 5?
7.
Used to be
7.
7.
But they
Seven?
sometimes
Sorry.
have deliberative earlier.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes they go
All
late.
right, sometimes it's 5 for deliberative, okay.
Yep.
And there's a volume of data to
Absolutely.
Ingest.
review. Good, all right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your interest and willingness to serve, and if you're not selected, I hope you won't go away upset and might
Not at all.
continue to think about other ways you can serve the community.
Thank you, Mike.
very much.
Michael,
Thank you very much, Michael.
and Quinn is here too.
All right, so
Quinn Mann.
Quinn Mann, yes. So Quinn, you're here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
See you all.
Thank you very much
Yes.
for expressing interest. One thing I didn't find on any of your submittals was exactly where in South Burlington you live.
Eastwood.
Yep, I live in the Eastwood Apartments.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't find, I didn't
It's
see
right at
that.
the top. It says Eastwood's Ave.
Where?
It's probably smaller print.
78, number 401.
Her application.
Is that building 1 or 2 or 3?
Um,
One.
The
my
application
Stonewood only has
document I got was
one. I don't
empty.
know.
Yeah,
if it's-
same with mine. They got stuff that
Oh, sorry,
I
it's
didn't
Stonewood
see.
on Eastwood Drive.
No,
Yeah.
there's also Maidstone
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm the same
and
as Helen.
Olympiad.
And then
Okay.
there's
I went to the box.
another one. There's a couple back there for sure.
There's a lot of buildings there.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, two of us got the application that was empty.
Oh,
So all I got, which was fine, was your kind of resume.
Okay.
And then I went to your LinkedIn, and so I could find out a lot, but I never could find out where you lived.
Gotcha. Yeah.
At first, I thought 180 Market Street. Let's see. Is that one of the buildings down there? And I said, no. I was thinking, the number was one of the apartments. Okay.
So
Yeah.
I will just say, and I'm happy to pass my computer so you guys can see. Ooh, sorry, Travis. Quinn did absolutely fill out the complete form, but all the content is in the document you do have.
It's also in the box.
Oh, okay.
I don't
But it-
have that either.
You don't have this either?
Mm-mm.
Oh. You should read it. It's good.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I will when we
All right,
go into
so
executive
maybe,
session.
No, you're totally
what we
fine. I'm
should
sorry.
do,
There's
Quinn,
technical difficulties.
Is have you, maybe quickly, since we got different
Yeah,
amounts
yeah.
of information, your experience and why you applied and what skill sets you think you bring to the table and.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I'm a 2015 UVM grad. I studied environmental science, and I now work in environmental compliance and policy for a small consulting firm working with federal agencies for compliance around the National Environmental Policy Act. I've been there for about 2 years. Prior to that, I worked for the state of Vermont with the Vermont Community Development Program, which administers federal funds for housing and economic development projects. So in that role, I was the environmental officer was my title. So I oversaw that all the projects we awarded complied with the National Environmental Policy Act, which was a requirement of our grants. So, looking at a lot of federal regulations around floodplains, wetlands, all that sort of thing. And also there's the kind of softer criteria of aesthetics, socioeconomic impacts, all of those sorts of things. So I definitely bring a kind of natural resources, environmental perspective, but also experience with, these are the rules and regulations we're operating under. We have a project that's proposed. Does this comply? And how does compliance look for that particular project, given the parameters we have? So it's my high level. I don't know if you.
So why are you interested?
Oh yeah, of course. So, like I said, I've been in my current position for about 2 years, and it's less Vermont focused. I was born in Vermont, have stuck around here, and I just have, working for the state, I really gained an enjoyment and appreciation working directly with Vermont communities. And that's something that's, missing from my professional realm right now, which I knew was something that I was going to miss when I stepped away from that position. So I saw this kind of opportunity come up, and I thought it would be a great way to be integrated into the community that I'm now living in, and that I bring good experience to it. So that's the primary, just wanting to be more involved in the local community.
Okay, and you're aware of the time commitment for
Yeah.
and probably better than we.
Yep.
Well, Jesse knows everything, but the rest of us don't.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there other questions people have? Megan?
The housing and development work you did with the state,
Mhm.
could you talk a little bit about what that involved?
Yeah, so we awarded primarily affordable housing projects. So, the Cathedral Square you have in this area. So we funded that, but as an example, so we would have applications come through, and they would have to meet the criteria of being eligible under our grant program, and then I would do kind of a primary check of, are there any big red flags as far as potential impacts or consultation that they need to do from an environmental perspective, and also make sure the applicant had the right resources and understanding of what that process was going to look like, so to kind of meet compliance. So my role was a lot of, I held quite a bit of trainings, developed guidance materials for that, a lot of one-on-one interaction and guidance around that, and then reviewing materials once they were submitted, plans, studies of, the like wetlands or whatever it was, and reviewing that whole package, and eventually, providing sign off, putting conditions on something if necessary to, say, all right, you're going to implement the project this way, but you're going to have to put in this mitigation or that sort of thing. So that was kind of the full circle of what I did.
Do you have more questions? Anyone else?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You said in your resume you're a lifelong Vermonter. Did you grow up in South Burlington?
No, I grew up in Bennington, Vermont.
Oh, sure. And you worked is the Department of Housing under the Agency of Commerce and Community Development?
Correct, yeah.
So you worked under Secretary Sherling?
I did, yep.
Then who was the commissioner at the time that you worked there of housing?
Katie Buckley was for a little bit, but Noel was there when I first got on, and then Josh Hanford was commissioner when I left for a little bit of time.
That's a great experience.
Yeah.
Have you been to a Development Review Board meeting?
I have not.
In any municipality?
No, I have not.
That's it.
Tim?
Have you ever been to one of his classes at UVM?
No, I don't think so.
or Megan's class? Did you take any French in college at all?
No, I did not, unfortunately.
Well, that's just.
Did you take a former counselor, Dave Kaufman? He works in. You graduated from the Rubenstein School.
I did. Yep.
Did you have any classes with him?
With who is it?
Dave Kaufman.
I don't think so.
He's more tourism.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay.
Can I just one more question? Can you tell us about your Act 250 experience?
Yeah, so my experience there was mostly kind of seeing how it overlapped with the federal process. So sometimes we would have applicants come in and they had already, are farther along in the Act 250 process. And my mentality was always, I want this to be as efficient as possible for you. And you don't want to like redo what you've already done. So, really just sometimes taking that documentation and pulling out, okay, this is what we need just in a slightly different format, or this leads directly to it. So pretty much just kind of reviewing documentation that would have been prepared for Act 250 and providing guidance and pulling things out that were applicable to our process to make the overall approval process more efficient for folks, because there's the local level, federal level, state level. Sometimes they're dealing with all of that.
So do you feel like you're semi-fluent in the whole Act 250 process?
Yeah, I would say so. Again, I haven't not super direct experience, but I know there's a lot of different nuance to it that you don't know unless you're in the process, but it's very similar to what the regulation I work with at a federal level. So I feel like I have a good handle on the process.
Have any of your projects had to deal with environmental court?
No.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Do you have any questions for us?
I guess my first one was just as far as getting the materials prior to the board, or is it more common that the board just like is kind of seeing the materials of a proposed project for the first time at the meeting?
You get them ahead of time, right?
Yeah, whether you or Mike get appointed, you first thing whoever was appointed will do is meet with Marla, and she will provide sort of backdrop of how you prepare for meetings and protocol, and you'll meet with the chair, Dawn Philibert, and she'll go through that as well. And the idea is give you all the information you need to do to hit the ground running, because it will be absolutely, you're drinking out of a fire hose for the first couple of months, but then it gets a lot more, it gets a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, that's great to hear because that was my hope to have some.
And because it's a regulatory committee, it has very specific notice requirements, so you get materials, I think, farther in advance than the council does.
Yes.
Great,
So you have lots of time to review in advance.
great,
We have great staff that run that.
excellent.
And they really support you. I mean,
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
you're not
Yeah.
slogging through this stuff and the
Yeah,
staff
right.
leads you.
Yeah,
Yeah, there are memos.
Or informs you, I should say. I guess
definitely.
leading sounds like the wrong verb.
Your materials reference the design review board, but you are replying to the development review board?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes.
We're not appointing to the design review committee right now, right?
Doesn't
There's
exist
existing.
anymore.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
another.
it
Fair
doesn't,
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't have any other questions as well. Thank you very much for applying. And as I said to Michael, if you're not selected, I hope there's other ways that you might be interested in
Mhm.
getting involved in this great community. And I'm glad you're living here.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate your guys' time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, next item is consider entering executive session for the purpose of considering these appointments.
Point of,
Can you have a,
I should have brought this up earlier, Helen, but
Yeah.
is there a reason why we wouldn't go to executive session for both things, and reason why we'd go and then come back? I don't know.
So the reason I organized the agenda that way is that if you are going to take a vote tonight, and it was a staff request, but you are not required to, you certainly can vote. You have 2 more meetings coming up in the next 2 weeks. You can vote at a later date. The reason I layered them like this is if you are going to vote, you should vote on camera, and re-enter regular session, vote, do other business, and then we can go into executive session where there's no other business.
That makes sense.
But it's your prerogative
Okay,
how
is
you'd
that-
like to move forward.
Yeah, that was a good explanation. Thank you, Jesse.
So
Okay.
would you like a motion?
yes,
So I'd like to move that the council enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing the appointment of an individual to fill the vacancy on the city's Development Review Board, inviting in Jesse Baker and Andrew Bolduc.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So we will move into executive session with the expectation we will come back
Can we
and
just turn off the cameras?
potentially have a vote. opening. So if you're ready for that vote, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
And
Great.
could we ask city manager to ensure that that Michael gets a note saying that he, to be notified promptly that he was not appointed, so.
Yes.
That's just been a minor complaint in the past from some applicants where they didn't receive prompt notification.
Sure.
Okay. The next item is reports from counselors on committee assignments. I do not have anything from the airport.
Nothing from GMTA, that's new.
Okay. All
The
right.
sound app is pretty cool. I've been looking at the sound app on the web, with the two sound meters, and then it tracks the flights. It tracks most flights.
Yeah.
It doesn't track all flights, but I haven't seen it go above 62 yet, but I'm just looking at it once in a while, and so you have to catch it at the right moment. So
Okay, great. All right, is there any other business? Okay, so would you like to consider entering executive session again for the purpose of discussing pending litigation?
sure. So I'd like to move that the council make a specific finding that premature general public knowledge of the council's discussion about the O'Brien Eastview PUD environmental court appeal to which the city is a party would clearly place the city at a substantial disadvantage, and move that that's the first motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye. And having so found, I'd like to move now that the council enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing the O'Brien Eastview PUD environmental court appeal, inviting in Jesse Baker, Andrew Bolduc, and Amanda Lafferty.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
And I would say we don't intend to come back, so this meeting is adjourned now, I guess.
Well,
Right.
we adjourn at the end, but there's no further action.
But
that
there's
will
no
be taken.
further action, so